Welcome to Moonlit's World. Today I'm going to be reading you some stories from Moonlit's Crypt. These are all 100% true stories, and I'm going to be adding in my commentary as well. Let's get right to it. Haunted house and apartment. When I was about 11 years old, my mom and I moved into a new used house. From the moment we moved in, I had a weird feeling in there. I felt like I was being watched by something or someone. I refused to go into the basement, and if I had to go down there, I would run as if my life depended on it. My bedroom was the attic that the original owners had turned into a bedroom. The door would always open and close on its own. My cat would chase something up and down the stairs all the time. Now, y'all do know cats can see ghosts. Okay. One day, I came home from school and was home alone. I was standing in the bathroom looking in the full-length mirror on the bathroom door when out of the corner of my eye, I see someone walk by me. It was a small boy, maybe 10 at the oldest. He was all white, including his hair, and his clothing looked to be an old war uniform. He had on a blue jacket and white pants that stopped just below the knee. He walked past me and into our TV room. I stopped and peeked around the corner, and no one was there. I was totally freaked out, and I ran next door to my friend's house and stayed there until my mom came home. Years later, I told my mom about my experience. Come to find out, she had had an experience herself, but didn't want to scare me, so she never told me before. She told me that whenever I was not at home and she would be sitting on the couch watching TV, someone would come up behind her and pull her hair. They would pull it so hard that it would jerk her head back. Girl, you been keeping that shit secret? Your mom is a op. We never did get to research and find out who the boy was, but after talking to our neighbors, we found out that the 4 houses, 2 on one side of the street and 2 on the other, each had one ghost. It was like it was a family. We had the boy, my next door neighbor had a cat, across the street from them had a woman, and across from us was a man. So you mean to tell me there's a ghost family all broken up into 4 separate homes? Like, never heard that before. My next story, I was about 19 years old. My husband and I just moved to our first apartment. I again had the feeling of being watched, but I tried to ignore it. We had so many issues in that apartment. For one, the heater and air conditioner never worked right. It would never stay the temp it was set at. Maintenance would constantly come to look at it and never found anything wrong. We always heard noises and things being moved around from where we put them to somewhere totally different. We heard rumors that the complex was actually built on an old Indian burial ground. I don't know if that was true or not though. The old Indian burial ground. Tale as old as time. When I got to know one of my neighbors, I told her about the things that I have been hearing and the things that have been happening. She didn't seem surprised at all. She told me that in the year she had lived next door, she had seen numerous people move in and out. She said that most would stay about 3 months and then move with no warning. She told me that we had lasted longer than anyone. One night, my husband and I were in bed talking and just about to go to sleep when we heard a noise. It sounded like someone running a plastic spatula up and down the metal spindles of our stairs. My husband jumped up and grabbed his switchblade and went to check it out. I slowly followed him down the stairs. We turned the corner into the living room. I flipped the light on, and on the far wall, a long mirror I had hanging there was swinging on one nail back and forth, which was making the sound. I go over to it and grab the mirror and look at the wall, thinking that one of the nails had came loose and it fell. That was not the case. The nail was still sturdy in the wall with no sign of it being bent or anything. Now, the hooks on the back of the mirror are made to where when you take it off the wall, you have to lift up and then pull out. So it seemed that someone or something lifted the mirror up on one side, pulled it out, and dropped it to make it swing. We were so freaked out that I took the mirror completely off the wall and we ran back up the stairs and sat in bed awake for the rest of the night. The next morning, we go back downstairs to yet another surprise. A few of my husband's action figures that were on a bookshelf were on the floor about 4 feet away from the bookshelf. I put them back on the shelf and then shook the bookshelf to see if I could make them fall. All that happened was that they fell over onto the shelf, not the floor. Next, I went to my neighbors on each side and asked if I could slam their doors and bang on their walls to see if I could recreate anything. Again, nothing happened, the same. The next thing I did was I sat the action figures back up in their exact spots, and I put my hand behind one of them and swatted it off the shelf, and it flew and landed in the same spot on the floor that I had found it in, so something had obviously hit them off of the shelf. Maybe a raccoon. The final straw was a few months later. I was home alone, putting together an entertainment center. My cat was going nuts, running up and down the stairs nonstop. You have a cat? She knocked those action figures down. Finally, something catches my eye as she is running back down the stairs. I look up and I see the full figure of a woman flying down my stairs. She was all white, in a white flowing dress and white hair. I was terrified. I called my mother-in-law to tell her I was coming over, and I stayed at her house until my husband got off work. We found a house to buy, broke our lease at the apartment, and never looked back. A few weeks ago, we drove by our old apartment, and the whole complex had been torn down and is now gone. Let me know what y'all think about that story. I think the cat was knocking the action figures down, but at the same time, that spot probably was haunted, and it was a good call to move the fuck out. Next story, please. The glass of water. When I was about 9 or 10, I shared a bedroom with my younger sister. Our beds were on opposite sides of the room with a chair beside each bed. In the middle of the night, I used to get real thirsty, but would be too scared to get up and get a drink of water. The house was really dark, so I would wake up in the middle of the night, realize that I was thirsty, but too much of a chicken to do anything about it, and then roll over and go back to sleep. One night was different though. I woke up thirsty and saw someone dressed in black sitting there in the chair by my bed, holding a tray with one glass of water on it. At first, I thought it was my mom. I rolled over to reach for the glass, but when I reached for it, nothing was there. So I thought I was imagining things and rolled over and went back to sleep. I've thought about that incident for years since, and now I know I wasn't dreaming it, but didn't think it was significant enough to tell anyone about it. I always thought in the back of my mind that it was a ghost of my maternal grandmother. I never knew my grandmother since she was Vietnamese and lived there all her life. My dad, who is American, met my mom over in Vietnam, married her, and brought her back here to the US. My mom keeps a picture of my grandmother dressed in a typical Vietnamese black dress at home, so that's how I always picture my grandmother. But I digress. Well, it turns out, a couple of years ago at Thanksgiving, we got on the subject of ghosts and stuff, and my sister tells a story about one night when we shared the same bedroom. She saw someone come into our room with a tray of 2 glasses of water on them. Needless to say, I shrieked. When my sister asked me why, I told her my story and the one about my 1 glass of water on the tray. We concluded that it was our grandma, and she visited my sister first. The whole time, our mom sat there, silent, just staring at us. We asked what she thought of it, and she told us her mom visited her almost nightly for about 2 weeks because her gravestone needed to be paid off and my mom's brother didn't have the money. My mom sent the money overseas to him, he paid it off, and my grandma stopped visiting my mother. My sister told me a story, I'll make it brief, about 2 sisters who always talked about if reincarnation existed or not. They swore to each other that whoever died first would come back and tell the other one if reincarnation did in fact exist. One of the sisters happened to have died and kept her end of the bargain by appearing at her sister's apartment. The living sister wasn't home, but her roommate was, and was wearing the sister's robe. The dead sister appeared to the roommate and said to tell the alive sister that reincarnation did not exist. Now, the roommate didn't know of the pact between sisters, and I don't think she fully realized that she was looking at a dead person. When the living sister came home, the roommate relayed what had happened, and the one sister realized that her sibling was dead. The sister explained everything to the roommate, and then they both freaked out. Has anyone heard of anything happening like this before? One coming back to tell someone that what the other side is like? I was watching that, they do this a lot in movies, and I was watching that show, The Midnight Club, on Netflix. Whatever. and I think they were doing something similar, but it's a TV show. Let me know if this has happened to you in real life. The Harleyville Ghost. This experience happened when I was about 14 years old. My uncle and his family rented an old house in Harleyville, South Carolina. The house was at least 100 years old. I would guess that the house had been built during the 1870s when cotton planting made many of the Southern aristocrats rich. It had been boarded up for about 20 years when the elderly lady that owned it decided to rent it out. She charged a ridiculously low rent for what was essentially a 2-story mansion in downtown Harleyville, which was composed of about 6 city blocks. It's just a small southern town. It had been a fine house in its time, but it was in a state of disrepair when my uncle and his family rented it. They had lived in the house about a month before we visited. Upon stepping foot in the house, I was overwhelmed. It felt like home. Looking back, I realized that the house had been decorated in the 1920s. It had a pine panel drawing room, a dumbwaiter, and a long staircase with ivory posts. It looked like a shack from the outside, but was still luxurious inside. We stayed a couple of hours and then left. My uncle insisted I come spend the next weekend with him. The next Friday, my father dropped me off at my uncle's house about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. A few minutes after arriving, my cousins wanted to show me the attic. I had 2 girl cousins who were about 7 and 12 at the time. My boy cousin was about 9. As we entered, my male cousin said, "You'll hear a lot of things after we leave here, but don't pay it no, never mind." That's real country. I didn't think about what he had said at all. Once we entered, I was overwhelmed. The attic was huge. Covering the walls were numerous old pictures, many of men in Confederate uniforms, most with the old glass oval frames. I've always been a history fanatic and just couldn't believe what I was seeing. And in the corner was a stack of old newspapers from the 1910s and 1920s. I immediately started reading them while my cousins played tag in the huge attic. About 2 hours later, we decided to go back downstairs. The sun was just beginning to set. We walked out of the attic and shut the door. As soon as the attic door was closed, footsteps began a ways from the attic door, then moved toward the door. When they reached the door, the footsteps turned around and moved away from the door. It sounded as if someone were pacing back and forth. I had frozen on the staircase. My cousin said, "Aaron, don't let it spook you. He does that whenever we go in there. He don't mess with anybody." Then my cousin prodded me down the stairs. The footsteps in the attic continued for the next hour. We could hear them on the ground floor. Then they suddenly stopped. In a short time, I had regained my senses and was no longer terrified. There is a festival in Harleysville called the Seesaw Days. They have amusement rides, snack stands, a parade, and the standard carnival distractions. I think it's attractions, but a carnival can be a distraction too, so maybe that's it. We went to the amusement park for a few hours, rode many rides, and had enough cotton candy to do us in for a lifetime. I had forgotten about the footsteps when we got back to the old house. I will say one thing here. Most of my family was poor. What they didn't lose during the Confederate War, they lost in the 1930s during the Great Depression and the bloody cotton mill strikes. Given this for a family background, my uncle did not have the money for starting the electricity in the house after they moved in, nor could they afford beds. Thus, we returned to the old house. It was total darkness when we entered. I remember the footsteps again and was terrified. My uncle told me to calm down. Then he lit 3 kerosene lamps. It must have been 11 p.m. by then. There were no clocks to know for sure. We sat up and talked for another 2 hours. Then my uncle told me and my cousins that it was time to sleep. My male cousin and I shared a sleeping bag. We set up shop a few feet from the foot of that grand staircase. About 3 feet from the foot of the staircase was the front door with 2 windows on either side of the door and no curtains. The moon was full that night, and its light illuminated the entrance room. We laid in a sleeping bag and dozed off immediately. I don't know what time it was, but I suddenly awakened. For some reason, I looked to the top of the staircase. I saw a white figure gliding slowly down the stairs. There was no distinction as to whether it was male or female. I elbowed my cousin and awakened him. I said, "Look at that on the stairs." My cousin looked up, then said, That's always there." He then turned over and went back to sleep. The figure kept gliding down the staircase. It reached the bottom of the stairs and glided to about 6 inches from where we were laying. Then its arm went up, as if pointing, and it disappeared. I laid there petrified until dawn, staring at the staircase. The next morning, my uncle came into the entrance room and said, "You saw it, didn't you? I knew you would." I said, "Yes, and I want to go home now." I had to wait a while. My father didn't come fetch me until late that Saturday afternoon. I never spent another night at that house. It was strange though. I still loved being there, but was terrified simultaneously. Oh, why would your uncle wanted to see if you was about that life. You was not. I may never know exactly what happened since my uncle passed away 14 years ago. But about 4 months after moving in the house, my uncle packed his family up and moved out of the house, all in one day. My mother, who is his sister, asked him why. He refused to answer. Finally, she asked my aunt, who was the most honest person I've ever met, why they moved so quickly. She worked the second shift at a state institution. One night, their children stayed at her parents' house. She said that she got home from work at 4 a.m. one morning and found my uncle sitting on the front steps. She could see lights twirling around in the house through the windows and heard moaning and groaning. My uncle said, "We have to leave here now." He told her that he had been sitting in the drawing room reading a book when he started hearing noises. Then white, misty forms appeared and started lunging at him. They said, "Get out! Get out!" They then started chasing him. Once he was out the front door, they left him alone. My aunt and uncle sat outside until dawn. When the sun rose, they gathered up their few belongings, put them in the car, and left the house. I heard the footsteps and saw the spirit on the stairs. I was scared, but I never felt threatened. The beings had an extremely belligerent reaction to my uncle, though. I can only attribute it to something horrible he did in his youth. I will never share what he did, but I feel that the spirits knew it, were repulsed, and drove him out. I must admit, I'm still fascinated by that house. I apologize for giving too much detail on it, but I'm still overwhelmed by it. I haven't been there in almost 20 years and want to go back. I don't live too far from it now and may actually do it. What really happened there, I might actually learn, but then again, maybe not. Anyway, a common theme I noticed in today's stories is that white mist, and actually the white mist seems to be an occurring theme in a lot of the stories that I read about ghosts. Have you guys ever seen the white mist when you see a ghost? Let me know, because I personally have not seen the white mist.